Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon Spoilers video. So over the past couple of days we got a whole bunch of new and exciting cards, so let's just talk about them. First up, we have Monochromon. So Monochromon is a red level 4. Stats are very, very similar to the blockers that we got from the starter decks for green, purple, and black. So this is just kind of following that cycle. We already kind of had Pidomon in yellow, which came out in the set before. So it looks like they're just slowly introducing the other cards of that kind of cycle, in a sense. And this is Red's card, so it wouldn't surprise me if Blue got theirs in the next set, but regardless, this is still just a very, very fantastic card stat-wise, just because it has a very low evo cost of 1 for a level 4, so it's a very good tempo tool, and then on top of which, the 5000 DP isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, just because you have the availability of choosing if you want to use it as a blocker or a tempo tool, and then on top of which, as I mentioned before, it does have the keyword blocker, so making sure that there's more blocker options in the game is definitely really, really good. And then on top of which, he has the classic blocker clause of his on-attack skill, where you'll lose 2 memory for attacking with him. So overall, I think this is a pretty solid card just because, again, more blocker options is really, really good, no matter what color it's in, and then on top of which, you could use this as a tempo tool, or you could use this as a blocker, and you don't really feel bad. Next up, we have Triceramon. So Triceramon is a pretty solid card. It is a red level 5 Digimon, and it is a vanilla card. But what's really interesting about this vanilla card is for a level 5, he has a play cost of 5, which is really, really low compared to a whole bunch of other level 5s. And then on top of which, he has a DP of 8,000, which is kind of on the larger side. So not only does he have a low play cost, he also has some high DP, but as a result, he does have about a normal or the higher end of Digivolution cost, but most of the time you're not really going to be trying to Digivolve this card. You're going to be playing it for its play cost, just because it is a very efficient card to play, and you'd rather have something a little bit more efficient if you're trying to Digivolve with, but regardless, it's still a very interesting card to think about just because the 8,000 DP is good, the low play cost is good, and the evo cost is about normal. Next up, we have Piximon. So Piximon got a color shift to green, so now Piximon is a green level 5, and stat-wise, it also has 8,000 DP, which is not too shabby. It has a play cost of 7, and it has an evo cost of 2. Now, I don't know exactly how good this card actually is, even though it is kind of just another one of those blah vanillas, but regardless, the fact that it has an evo cost of 2 means it's very, very tempo efficient, but again, I don't know how good this card actually is going to be, considering it is in green, and green already has so many other good tempo efficient options that just do more for the megas, and really green is all about trying to get up into your megas as quickly and efficiently as possible, and I don't know exactly if this card is really fitting that mold, just because he doesn't have an inheritable ability. His DP is the only notable thing about the card compared to a lot of other level 5s, where it's 8,000 instead of 7,000 or below. So that's the only real notable thing about the card, and then you're never going to want to play it because, again, the play cost is about on par or average with everything else in its level. So I don't exactly think this card's going to see a whole lot of play, but who knows? It's still a relatively decent tempo tool just because that evo cost of 2, but again, green just has so many other cards to utilize that I just don't see this seeing a whole lot of play. Next up, we have Cardamon. So Cardamon is just your average black level 3. Stat-wise, it's doing nothing too special, but what is special about the card is the fact that it has a really nice on-play ability. So its on-play ability is you get to check the top 5 cards of your deck and add 1 Digimon card with unidentified in its typing, and add 1 Arada Sonata tamer card among them into your hand, and then place the rest on the bottom. So this is just the level 3 that is going to be digging for specific cards that he interacts with. So he's going to be interacting with a new tamer, and he's going to be interacting with the unidentified card typing. So this just is going to help search out a whole bunch of your cards from your deck, and that's just pretty good. Next up, we have a new Kurisariman. So this Digimon is a pretty solid Digimon for being a black level 4. Stat-wise, nothing too special to talk about, but it does have a when Digivolving ability and an inheritable ability. So its when Digivolving ability is if you don't have the Arata tamer card in play, then you get to just basically play one of that tamer card from your hand for free. So the whole idea is to have Cardamon search it out, and then Kurisariman just digivolve in and play it for free, just to try to help get your setup going. So that's already pretty solid. And then on top of which, it has a nice inheritable effect where during your turn, all of your other Digimon with the same name as this Digimon gain Rush. So this is just a pretty solid ability to have, just because being able to attack the turn that they're played is a very, very aggressive thing, and especially in a Diaboromon deck, the whole goal is to just spawn a whole bunch of Diaboromon tokens, and this basically, in the source of a Diaboromon, just makes all of those Diaboromon tokens gain Rush, and that's just, again, very, very powerful because you could apply so much extra pressure onto the opponent and really try to close out games with this type of ability. So I definitely really think this card is going to be really solid and going to see quite a bit of play in the new Diaboromon decks. Next up, we have a new Informant. So this Informant, stat-wise, isn't really doing anything too special for being a black level 5, but what is interesting about the card is the fact that his native ability is the fact that it's a Warp Digivolving ability. So you could Digivolve this off of a Cardamon from your hand by paying 4 and ignoring the Digivolution requirements. So this is just a really, really good ability to have, just because Cardamon being a level 3 going straight into an Informant helps it set up your Mega a little bit more efficiently, so that way you can skip that middle stage, but regardless, it's still just a very, very solid ability just to try to get up into your higher levels that much faster. And we don't really see this ability a whole lot, so it's really, really nice to see it here because it adds a whole bunch of utility and versatility to the card in how you want to play it. And then he has a really nice inheritable ability where on deletion you just get a free Diaboromon token. So this Diaboromon token is going to be a level 6 white Digimon that costs 14, has 3000 DP, is a Mega, unidentified, and unknown. So it just is a Diaboromon token. We've already seen this kind of stuff before with the original Diaboromon, so this is just on death creating a token. So that's just really solid because it basically is replacing the Mega that you're Digivolving with, and obviously your main Mega is going to be Diaboromon in this style of deck, so just making sure you have a Diaboromon on the field at all times is definitely something really, really important for that deck to be doing, and as such, I think this Informant is going to be a pretty solid Informant to play. Next up, we have a new Diaboromon. So this Diaboromon is a level 6 white Digimon. So the original one was also a white level 6, but the promo one was actually a black level 6. So it's interesting that they decided to make this one white when the promo one was black. So they could have made him black, but regardless, it's totally fine that he's white. It doesn't really matter for the Diaboromon deck, just because that Diaboromon deck is doing its own thing. So it's totally fine that this is white. But what's really interesting is that he is a little bit stronger natively than the original Diaboromon. So he has a Evo cost of 3 and 11,000 DP, where the original Diaboromon was 40 Evo with 10,000 DP. So this one just natively is a little bit stronger, but as a result, his ability isn't exactly as strong as the originals. So his ability is just a simple when Digivolved ability, you get to spawn a Diaboromon token. So that's already pretty decent of an ability, just because the ability to spawn more bodies on board just creates more pressure on board. And then as we see with a whole bunch of the Diaboromon synergy, the whole point is to Digivolve into Diaboromon and capitalize on the fact that you are going to be playing a whole bunch of Diaboromon. It's kind of fine that his ability is a little bit more blah, but like he's still a very, very decent card to be playing just for those Diaboromon decks, just because, again, higher stat line, Diaboromon name, and spawning another Diaboromon are all things that the Diaboromon deck really wants to be doing. So as a result, I definitely think this card is going to see quite a bit of play in that new Diaboromon deck. Next up, we have a new Tamer card in the form of Arata Sonata. So Arata Sonata is a pretty solid black Tamer card. He has a play cost of 3, so he's a little bit more efficient than the 4-cost Tamers just because he costs less, and he's still a very solid Tamer for black and more specifically for Diaboromon. So what his abilities are is at the start of your turn, if you have a Digimon with unidentified in its typing in your trash, then you gain 1 memory. So the whole idea of this card is he's just going to be passively gaining you 1 memory every single turn, because more likely than not, you're going to be wanting to play all of the unidentified Digimon, because you're just trying to capitalize on the whole Diaboromon line. And then on top of that, he even has another ability where during your turn, when you Digivolve your Digimon into a Diaboromon, then you could suspend this tamer and to play a Diaboromon token onto the field. So this is just really, really good because obviously Diaboromon wants to just interact with Diaboromon tokens, and having a tamer just passively going to be able to spawn you more Diaboromon tokens is really, really good, not only for the new Diaboromon, but for all of the old Diaboromons as well. This card for the Diaboromon decks is just a very, very powerful card and definitely the tamer that they want to be playing with. And then the last card that we got over the past couple of days is going to be Armageddon. So Armageddon is an absolute beast of a card. This card is really, really powerful, and I think this card is going to see quite a bit of play. So what this card is doing is he is a white level 7, so we already know he's going to be really, really powerful just from that alone. On top of which, he has a play cost of 15. He has a Digivolution cost of 3 off of black or white. So we haven't really seen the ability to Digivolve off of white Digimon before. The only white Digimon that are level 6 that apply to this are going to be the 2 different forms of Diaboromon that are white. So that's kind of like the intended synergy there. And then the black is literally for the black promo, so that way you could just Digivolve him off of the black Diaboromon as well. So that's just, again, pretty interesting to think about, but the fact that he could just Digivolve off of a black Digimon just also is really, really good for black decks as just a generic tool to use. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But on top of which, he also has a DP of 15,000, so this is Omnimon level power we're talking about. He has a really powerful ability where you could play this card from your hand by deleting one of your Diaboromons to reduce his play cost by 12. So this is essentially a level 7 that you could play for 3, and that's just really, really powerful, and 9 out of 10 times you're just going to be wanting to sacrifice a Diaboromon token because your tamer creates a Diaboromon token, and then your Diaboromons will also create Diaboromon tokens, so it's not going to be hard to have an extra Diaboromon token just to sack to this ability. And then on top of which, the benefit for doing that is he has the rush ability. So that way you could just spawn a Diaboromon token, sack it off to play him for 3, then swing with him right away. So that's just really, really powerful to think about. Those 2 abilities alone make him a very, very powerful Digimon. And then on top of all of that, he even has another ability during all players' turns. All level 7 Digimon do not activate their when Digivolved effects. So this does include you, but obviously in the style of deck that you'd be putting him in, he's going to be the only level 7, and he doesn't have a when Digivolved effect, so it's not like it really matters. He's just in there to try to shut out the opponent's level 7 Digimon, so that way all of their when played abilities do not trigger, and I believe almost all of the level 7 Digimon do have a when Digivolved ability that really does matter to the card on how you want to utilize the card, so this just shutting those out is definitely a huge factor on how the opponent can play their cards. So this card is just looking to be an absolute monster to deal with, not only in Diaboromon decks, but in black decks as well, just because you could just Digivolve up into them, just because black can do that. And then, obviously, in the Diaboromon decks, he just synergizes with the deck very, very nicely because you could have Cardamon help search for Armageddon. You have so many ways to spawn Diaboromon tokens, and you have so many different Diaboromons, because if you really need to, you could also sacrifice one of your own Diaboromons if you don't have any tokens on the field. So that's just another interesting thing that the card can do. And this card's just looking to be a very, very powerful card for the Diaboromon decks, and is definitely going to be a very powerful card to think about running just in a general sense if you're playing black. So this card is just absolutely insane. So that's kind of all of the spoilers that we got over the past couple of days. It definitely looks like this new Diaboromon deck that is shaping up is definitely going to be a really interesting deck to be playing with, because Diaboromon before really wasn't doing anything, and he was like one of those dead in the waters decks where just Omnimon just shut him out, and now he has a way to fight back against that, on top of which having his own new powerhouse tools definitely means that the deck is going to be getting a whole lot of new life, and is definitely going to be a really interesting deck to see what happens with. So that's kind of all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.